Originally, I had picked classical music to do my speech about and kind of just like go into the background and stuff like that about. But once I started researching it, it kind of just became not about only classical music. So I'm gonna just get into it and I hope you guys learned something. So going into it, I knew four composers. It was Bach, Beethoven, Mozart, and Tchaikovsky. I grouped them all into classical music, just like an umbrella of classical music. However, this is not the case. I was right on two of those though. Beethoven and Mozart are definitely classical music composers. The other two are not. So Bach is a composer during the Baroque period. And that type of music occurred during the Renaissance era. And in the Renaissance era, like many of us know, they did go and follow Greek and Roman philosophy. So of course their music is gonna follow that too. And so the Baroque period music started because they were going after the philosophy that music was a form of communication that was able to evoke feeling and emotion into its listeners. So the composers of this time were really just trying to create music that was like, they were just like, hey, I want to be able to make my listeners feel something when they're listening to my music. And so that's really why it started. And so the transition kind of happened at the last few years of this era into classical music. And so that's why it does sound similar, but the difference between these two type of music is that classical music has mood changes and volume changes unlike the Baroque period, and it also like its tune is a lot more clean and simple compared to the Baroque period music. And just like classical music transition from the Baroque period, the romantic period transition from classical music because since Beethoven, like I said, Beethoven was a composer, so Beethoven was the one that kind of really started transitioning from classical music into the romantic period. And I want to say that each music like period is kind of like the one before, just turned up a little bit more, because romantic period music is similar to classical music, just kind of turned up a notch. So romantic period music, you hear these volume changes and mood changes occur throughout the song a lot more than compared to like classical music. So that's why I think, like, when I picture it and think about it, I feel like it's just each period is just the period before but just turned up like a few notches. And I feel like because of this, a lot of people, including myself, would often like confuse it and just kind of group them all together when they're not. And so definitely after like researching this stuff, it kind of like opened my mind and I was able to notice like, hey, there is differences in these musics that I wasn't really aware of before. If you knew that already, I'm sorry, just listening me rant on about this. If you didn't, I'm happy I was able to inform you guys about the differences in these type of musics.